Welcome back to my channel, All Things Ray. I am coming to you today to talk to you about just a little more background about who I am and just being transparent. It's actually a story time, but it's going to be practically about just me growing up, stuff that I've experienced, how I came to even be a believer. I really wanted to share my story about being raped and sexually abused. And so this is what I'm doing in this video. So if you're watching this, I hope you enjoy it. And if you do not enjoy it, then, you know, if you know someone who may enjoy it, share it with them. As always, I have to do the YouTuber thing. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already subscribed. Considering how this is my second video, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have not subscribed yet. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button somewhere. And then also follow me on Instagram, which is also somewhere on this screen. So now that we got all of that out of the way, it is now time for the story time. By the way, I got my little inches in and I feel like I'm somebody. Other side note, I do make wigs. So if you know somebody that need a wig, holler at me, DM me, all that good stuff. Again, shameless plug. So on the real note, to this story time. So growing up as a kid, I grew up in the church, ergo's everybody else. And not really understanding that growing up in the church doesn't mean you have a relationship with God. Because you realize that as you get older and life seems to keep hitting you from all different directions, you realize, ooh, I really need to get a real relationship with God to be grounded. And so that's kind of what happened to me in a nutshell. So like I said, growing up, I grew up in the church, I danced, I pretty much did everything in the church you could possibly think of. So I taught Sunday school classes. You know, I just kind of felt like that kind of created my identity that, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I'm doing everything I need to do in the church or whatever. But not really realizing that I'm still doing all of this and I have low self-esteem, or I'm lacking values and morals in some areas and parts of my life. That didn't really hit me until middle school. Middle school was so rough. Like, your girl was not, I'm gonna say I look good, but it was rough in middle school. And I know some of y'all can go back and look at your middle school pictures and you'll be like, I was a little rough there too. So don't drag me. You was rough too, okay? On a real note, I had the braces, I had the glasses, which I do wear glasses. I've been wearing glasses literally all my life since kindergarten. I've had the broken limbs. I've had like the Band-Aid patch on the face from like a terrible carpet burn that happened in like 7th grade. So I had to walk around with this fat bandage on my face for the longest. And so, yeah, you know, middle school was just a rough time for me. And that's when low self-esteem really started developing, because all of my peers and classmates, they're just cruel people. And so I definitely got bullied growing up in middle school, and even in high school, it didn't stop. So dealing with low self-esteem, lacking self-confidence in middle school, that carried over into high school with me. And I didn't really start dating guys like that until high school. Seriously, I guess. Because middle school don't really count, and really high school don't really count. But at that time, I thought I was in love or whatever. Y'all know, y'all been in high school and thought y'all was in love. Don't act. But you know, high school was more of my serious relationships at the time. And so being that same girl that really didn't have a lot of self-esteem, that lacked self-confidence, and not really knowing who she is in Christ, that same girl carried over into high school. And so I found myself in relationships with guys that meant me no good. I would get cheated on. I would get verbally abused. And because I didn't know my value and my self-worth, I stayed in those types of relationships. Because I didn't know the person that God really called me to be in my purpose, I stayed in those relationships. And so that's why it is so valuable and so key for you to develop as early as you can a real relationship with God, because that will keep you from so much. So with that being said, I'm in high school. There's this guy I was dating on and off throughout high school, because y'all know about the on and off relationships or whatever. And so I was dating this guy on and off. And so my senior year of high school, I found myself on Valentine's Day, I was raped. And it's not as touchy as it was, because, you know, years have gone by. I've, you know, forgiven the guy. I've prayed about it, all of those things. But it wasn't until really that situation happened in my life when I developed a real relationship with God. And so if you just think about all the time that's passed, what are you when you graduate? Like 17, 18? So for at least, if we're not counting elementary school, from what, 12 to 17 or 18, for the next 5-6 years, I didn't have a real relationship with God in my primary years. And I really was thinking I had one. It wasn't until that situation happened when I realized I did not have a real relationship with God. So I found myself, like I said, on Valentine's Day being raped in a car by the guy who I thought I loved and trusted. And y'all, I don't know. It's very hard to explain. And I was determined that I was not going to tell my parents. I was determined that I was just going to keep it to myself. Because also, too, in high school, while that time was going on, there was a lot of personal stuff just going on in my life in general. But that situation happened, and like literally life just went downhill from there. I got angry with God. And because I was harboring a secret and just kind of like shaming myself on the inside, I found myself even wanting to commit suicide multiple times. And no one really knew the mental space I was in, I guess. Because, you know, at that point, like, I'm going to school, I'm going through the motions like normal, but you don't realize like the mental space someone else is in. Even though they have this great facade making it seem like they're okay, but they're really not on the inside. And so that was me. I mean, there were times where I would go in the bathroom and cry. There were times when I come home, and even really a couple weeks after that, because I ended up telling my parents, because my friend kind of was like, yo, if you don't tell them, I'm gonna tell them, type of thing. So that's literally the only reason to this day I even said anything to my parents, because I was not even planning on saying anything. And so so that kind of, I'll talk about that conversation. So that conversation with my mom was probably one of the most realest conversations I've had with my mom ever in life. And I think that is what, we've always had a good relationship, but I feel like that is what made our relationship even stronger. And so probably like 2 weeks after Valentine's Day, I go home after school and I tell my mom what happened. And my mom is kind of in shock, as a mother would be. She's hurt. I believe she cried. And I'm crying because it's like embarrassing, because, you know, in high school, it happened in a car. So in high school, you know, you're being grown and fast and just doing stuff you really don't have any business doing. And so like I'm crying because I really didn't want to tell her, but I have to tell her, type of thing. And she's crying because probably number one was, why couldn't you be honest enough with me prior to, type of thing. And then also the fact that I'm her little girl and this has happened to me. So she calls up the guy's mom and talks to the mom and tells her, or kind of, we're both on the phone. It's like a speakerphone situation. We're both on the phone and I'm explaining to his mom what happened. And so his mom is like heartbroken and very devastated as well. And so I think at that particular point, he wasn't home yet. I think him and his dad were doing something, or some type of football practice or something. And so his dad and him eventually come home. And so his mom asks him what happened to see if the stories matched up. She never said that she talked to me or anything like that. She just asked what happened the night we went out for Valentine's Day. And so after probably like 2-3 hours went by, because it was like 8. I remember it was like 8 at night, and we didn't get a call back until like close to 11. And so so from 8 to 11, they spent all this time like asking him questions, and he kept lying and lying until eventually, like when she called back, she was like, his story finally matched exactly what I said. And so from there, his mom, you know, proceeded to ask if I wanted to press charges and if I was pregnant. And thank God your girl was not pregnant, because that was not, just would have not been the move for me, really. And I don't think I would have been able to handle that mentally just based on all the other stuff I was dealing with. So I did not decide to press charges. The agreement, I guess, kind of was he was going to end up going to another school anyway, and I was getting ready to graduate high school because he was a year up under me. So I was getting ready to graduate high school. And so it was kind of just like I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear from him. I don't want to talk to him. I'm good riddance, all of that. Just keep him away from me type of situation. So, and this was what, February, so school ended in May. So from February to May, it was just almost like kind of awkward and weird. I can remember my best friend, actually at the time, we're no longer best friends today, but she ended up, he gave her a card to give to me to like apologize, which I accepted the apology or whatever. He was just kind of thankful for me not pressing charges, stuff like that, because I understood like he was trying to go to college on a football scholarship and all of those things, and I didn't want to mess that up for him, and I already knew I was gonna leave and go off to college anyway. So at that point, it was whatever. After that, May came, I graduated, but from February to May, it was a struggle. I still wasn't walking around super happy, but I was so angry. I remember being so angry with God. Like, I remember I would come home and I would be like, God, why did you let this happen to me? Like, stuff like this happens in like movies. Like, you don't hear about, I don't know, the church girl getting raped on Valentine's Day. Like, that was just like taboo type of thing. Like, it just didn't happen. And so for that to happen to me was almost detrimental to my relationship with God, because I was like, yo, like, how could you let this happen? Like, I've been putting in work in the church, Sunday school, all this stuff, and then this going happens to me. And being immature, number one. Two, number one is not having a relationship with God, and number two is being immature. I blamed God, and it was to the point where I didn't even want to believe in God anymore. I contemplated suicide. It was just a weird space for me. It was just my passion and drive for everything. The latter half of my senior year just kind of went downhill after that. And so, so I graduate. I ended up going to college. I went to Georgia State a year later. So I've gone through the first year of college. So my relationship with God from May until the end of my first year of college was kind of rocky. I would go to church and stuff, but I wouldn't really feel much. It was just like a weird type of space I was in, because I was really mad and upset with God for just, you know, allowing this to be my story. And so, it wasn't until June of that following year, like I said, the end of my freshman year of college, when our church was having a worship night. And in that worship night, I found myself just kind of like sitting there like, yo, I'm good. Like, this real cute. I'm here, but I ain't really here type of thing. And so I could remember just the pastor being on stage saying like, y'all have to tap into the spirit, y'all have to pray, y'all have to worship. And I'm like, yo, like, I've been doing all that, and God like didn't come through for me. Like, he gave me like one of the most kind of like harsh stories to have, and I'm supposed to sit up here and like praise God about this or worship this man when he allowed me to get raped. Like, that's not where my mind is at on the situation. And so so I can remember just sitting there in the church service, like everyone else is like worshiping around me, and I'm just like sitting there like not feeling anything, because that's how I felt. I didn't feel anything. Towards the end of that service, I was like, yo, I'm just gonna give this a try, because I've been sitting here for what, an hour and some change. It ain't really budge. So let me just see if God is really with me, because he wasn't with me back then. I could remember getting on my knees and I prayed simple prayer. God, if you real, speak to me, because I need to know you real. Because based off of this past year, based off of all this time that's passed, God, I don't really believe that you were with me. I don't believe, if you were with me, you wouldn't let that happen to me. If you were with me, you would have really loved me instead of letting me be in a situation where I got hurt. And so that was my prayer, or confession or whatever you want to petition. I don't know, because it wasn't really much of a prayer. It was more so like, God, you got to show me that you're real. And if I get up from this spot and you have not spoken to me before the end of this service, I'm good on everything you. And those were literally my exact words. I will never believe in you anymore. And so I was like, I'm just going to sit here. So I sat there and I didn't hear nothing. I mean, the worship music and stuff is going on, but I'm waiting on this, like, I don't know what I'm waiting on, but I know God ain't showed up yet, pretty much. I sat there a little bit longer. So probably like 10-15 minutes had passed by. And like literally, y'all, it was like a heat wave just like overtook me. And I started breaking down crying so bad. And God spoke to me. I'm not talking about like your inner voice speaking to you. I'm talking about, which is the Holy Spirit. But I'm talking about like the audible voice of God. Like God, like how you can hear me now, right now in this video, was how God was talking to me. And he didn't even like say anything like super long and profound like how you think it is in the movies. God was reeling down the earth. And God literally said, I love you. I've always been here with you. I've never forgotten you. I've always been here with you. I love you. Yo, I broke down. I don't know if I broke down because of what God said to me or if I broke down because of the fact like, yo, God is real. Like this man is speaking to me. And ever since that night, June 6, 2014, I recommitted my life to God because obviously anything else prior to this was not a real relationship with him. At that point, I realized, yo, God is real and I want to be about his business. I want to be about my Father's business. I don't know. From that day on, my life changed. And then the crazy part was, so that following semester, so fast forward to sophomore year, we're now in the first semester, sophomore year of college. I'm like walking to class and the guy from the senior year of high school situation turns the corner because he ended up going to Georgia State to play football. So the guy comes around the corner, didn't even like, I mean, haven't seen him since February of senior year. Have not seen him since then. Comes around the corner. I'm like in shock a little bit. And we speak. It was like a, hey, how you doing situation. And it was almost like a, yo, I'm so sorry about whatever happened to you. Yada, yada, yada. That whole spiel. That was like our conversation. And I was like, you know, I've actually gained closure on it. Like, it's okay. And so that was like our first conversation ever since February. Also at the time, I ended up helping charter on-campus ministry for girls. From there, really developed my passion for young women and empowering young women and helping them to understand the value that they need to see in themselves. So with that being said, that is how the nonprofit is now coming into play. So anyways, backtrack a little bit. So I see the guy, we kind of talk. From there, life just kind of took off. Like I would sit and listen to God for like hours just to hear his plans that he had for me, or even just to hear his voice, or to even feel his presence. And so that really kicked off my relationship with God. Ever since then, like I've been on fire for God. I mean, there are times where, you know, your relationship can get a little dry with God. But it's never to the point where I've never doubted that God isn't real. Ever since then. That being said, like I said, I ended up charting an on-campus ministry at Georgia State with me and a friend and a couple other e-board members. And then from there, once I graduated and did that for my time while I was at Georgia State, once I graduated, I wanted to start a nonprofit for young girls ages 12 to 18. Where I have a book published where I'm actually teaching these girls about how to value themselves, how to set goals, how to handle romantic relationships or even relationships with family, the importance of knowing who you are and telling your story and owning up to it, because in your story is where you find your purpose. So yeah, so that's my little story time, just a little bit about me, who I am. And so now looking back on it, nobody being sexually abused and raped is wrong. And if you know someone who is, tell, because being that person in that position, naturally we don't want to tell, but if someone tells you, you tell. If someone needs help, you help. I said that to say that present day, Had that never would have happened to me, I wouldn't have had a real relationship with God, and I wouldn't know my purpose in life. Do I wish it happened that way? I definitely don't wish it happened that way. I wished I would have found a real relationship with God beforehand, because that probably would have prevented a lot of the things that led up to that point. But am I thankful for my testimony? I will forever be grateful and thankful for my testimony, because it has made me the purpose-driven woman that I am today. It's made me the God-fearing, chastened woman that I am today. And I wouldn't take that back for anything in the world. So yeah. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you all found this video super interesting, and I hope that, you know, by me being transparent with you, that, you know, you all will be understanding to my transparency. So that being said, I could not wait for the next video, and I will see you guys soon.